Hi.
Hi, Laura.
So, Randy and I, just about every day, have these monumental, amazing conversations on the phone, typically, sometimes in person, but usually it's on the phone. And we always think, okay, well, we should have recorded that because people need to hear this, what we talk about. It's like what we feel, or at least I feel, what we talk about is things that you don't hear in polite conversation around parish in the narthex. You don't hear people talking about this. You don't. We hear it, fortunately, from the pulpit here at Divine Mercy Parish, but many churches, many Catholic churches, the priests are not giving these messages to their flock. And so anyway, we talk about these things all the time. And today I happened to see a meme on Facebook. And it's the message is something that Randy and I talk about literally all the time. And so the meme is, and I'll show it here in a second, let each father make his home a church. Are you not responsible for the salvation of your children? Are you not likely to give an account for their upbringing? Just as clergy will give an account for their flocks, so fathers of families will have to answer before God for all the people in their home. And that is a quote by St. John Chrysostom, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's close enough. So I called Randy and I'm like, you got to hear this. And his reply is all about this men's conference that he's a part of that is happening next year, and about the importance of having faithful men leading our families. So, Randy, talk to me.
Yes, this was an interesting thing. When you brought up this meme, I immediately thought of a email that I just got from Father Rick Heileman. He's a pastor over at Pine Bluff, and him and I have got to know each other over the last couple of weeks now that we're setting up this Men of Christ conference in Monona Terrace in Madison next October. And he sent out this information that is directly associated with Laura's meme. Things happen with Laura and I where she brings up something and I just hear about something similar just a few days before. It's just amazing how that works. But I'm going to go through some specific statistics that show how important it is for men to be a part of the upbringing of their family when it comes to their faith. And I'm going to go through statistics. The first one shows if both the father and mother attend Mass regularly, 33% of the children will end up as regular churchgoers, and 41% will end up attending irregularly. Only a quarter of their children will end up not practicing at all. Number two, if the father is irregular and the mother is regular, only 3% of the children will subsequently become regulars themselves, while a further 59% will become irregular. 38% will be lost. Number three, if the father is non-practicing and mother practices regularly, only 2% of the children will become regular worshipers, and 37% will attend irregularly. Over 60% of their children will be lost completely to the church if that is the scenario between husband and wife. What happens if the father is regular but the mother irregular or non-practicing? What do the statistics show? Amazingly, the percent of children becoming regular goes up from 33% to 38% with the irregular mother, and up to 44% with the non-practicing mother. This suggests that loyalty to the father's commitment to his faith grows in response to the mother's laxity or indifference to religion. So based on what we're all working toward, getting the fathers more involved in their faith, that has a direct impact on if their kids, if his kids and him and his wife's kids practice the faith when they grow up. So it's a really critical subject matter that all men of all faiths really need to understand on the importance of the father being active in his faith.
So that's pretty powerful information. And we all know these families that that their parents were so faithful, and now that the parents are gone and the next generation has taken over, that fewer and fewer of those families attend church. So when they're elderly and the next generation is coming up, you have so many families who are no longer practicing Catholics, and it's very sad, especially if you knew the previous generations who seem to be so faithful. But when you really look at those families, were both the father and the mother faithful, or did you always see the mother at church and saw the father occasionally? We've all heard stories too about how, the father drives the family to church, lets them out, then he goes on his way, and the mother and the children are at church, probably praying for the father.
Yeah,
I guess.
And it's such an important situation too when you think about your fatherly responsibility in raising your kids up in the faith, and the ultimate goal is to shoot to heaven. If fathers knew these percentages and took it to heart, like, hey, I need to be involved in my faith, and then my children will follow me, that is the best legacy you can leave as a father on this earth. If you pursue this and you work toward your kids in attaining heaven someday for an eternity. So it doesn't get any more important than this when it comes to your ultimate eternal salvation. Again, we're only here on this earth for so very little time, but going to heaven is for an eternity. And so many have just gotten laxed, kind of a slow fade to where they just stop going, and they don't realize it's happening until it's too late. So again, to get men in particular informed about this is just such a critical objective that we all should have, and we need to talk to each other about it in order for us all to be on the same page for the same common good, and that is to get to heaven.
And why do you think that this role reversal has happened, where the majority of the responsibility of the Catholic education in the home falls to the mother?
Yeah, I think that fathers just for some reason over the course of years just become disinterested. For whatever reason, if the mother just kind of takes over and the father just steps into the background and lets her lead the family toward faith, it kind of maybe just turns him off because of that. And so he's losing his interest in pursuing his faith because he may think, hey, my wife's handling it, and now I could just step aside and do my sports thing or my hunting or fishing, whatever. But it's really actually the opposite based on these stats. The father needs to take control when it comes to the faith in the family. He needs to be the head of the family. And again, when it shows that statistics prove that the children will follow his lead, it doesn't get any better than that. So, but I think again that slow fade to where maybe the dad didn't really get taught the faith very well, and then he became disinterested. That may be the case in a lot of situations, but it's really up to the fathers to take their faith seriously, to learn some of the facts of the Catholic faith, and then to lead their families accordingly.
I know in my own family that when our daughters were in college, and they would miss Mass, and we would always know because when they came home, they wouldn't receive the Eucharist. So that was like our little sign that they were not following the faith at when they were away at college. But my husband would always say to them, it is still an expectation of your mother and I that you attend Mass, even when you are away from home, especially when you're away from home. And that carried more weight with them, I think, than if I had said to them, you need to go to Mass, or we want you to go to Mass, or you have to go to Mass. The fact that their father took the time to say, it is an expectation of your parents, myself and your mother, that you attend Mass. That went a long way into them then saying, yes, I need to attend Mass. So I know firsthand, I've witnessed the power of the father's role when it comes to educating the children in the faith and keeping them in the faith.
And I've always thought, too, of yesteryear, back in the 1920s or 1930s, how families had to struggle really hard to get to Mass in the first place with their horse and buggies. It's an all-day event sometimes, to where it may take so long to get to church, but it's a family event to where they all went. And now with the advent of the internet and all of our modern things that have happened over the course of the last number of years, people just have lost that interest for whatever reason. But again, back in maybe the 1800s, 1700s, families took this so extremely serious. It meant everything to the family. And again, life was so much more difficult back in those days, where it was hard to survive living off the land. So I guess we've become kind of laxed with all of our wonderful things that we have in our modern world. But in reality, it's making us number of people just take a step back and forget about the importance of their faith.
Don't you think it's just become too easy?
Yes.
Our life is compared to the example you just gave. It's a piece of cake. We jump in our car. We live 3 minutes from church, so it takes no time to get. In fact, this time of year, the car's not even warm by the time we get to Mass. So, but I think things are too easy sometimes, and when you're in the life is pretty comfortable, I think you become complacent, and I think that's very true when it comes to your family. I think parents these days too have a lot of things that pull them in different directions. So in most households, you have both parents are working. In many households, if you have multiple children, those children are in multiple sports. And all of those things seem to take priority from living a life of faith.
You bet. And when you look at setting priorities, again, we talked about it earlier, that we're on this world just for a few short years, and eternity waits for us all. And if it's hard to think about eternity, but if you really can put that into perspective, you should absolutely look at prioritizing your daily life to think about eternity. The closer you get to God, the holier you are. We should always strive to be saints, and we shouldn't be afraid to say it. And then, it just feeds off each other. If the kids see that, then they'll get excited about it, and things roll from there. But there's so many things in this world that Laura said are taking us away from practicing our faith. So many. So we have to be focused. And when you learn about the faith, all the wonderful saints and all the miracles of the Catholic faith over these last 2,000 years, that's what got me going. It's just so exciting to learn about the faith. God has given us plenty of examples of how powerful He is in giving us signs to say, hey, I'm here. Now, are you going to listen to me or not? And I'm all in based on once you start researching it. And again, Jesus tells us that we need to knock on the door. And over the last decade or so, I've been knocking, and the results I get from researching the faith is something that I want to tell everybody. And that's why maybe you and I are talking about this subject now with using this vehicle. So it's exciting. Nothing's more exciting to me than talking about the faith. Everything else is secondary.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the gender roles? How they've been watered down and changed in perception anyway? How do you think that factors into perhaps maybe fathers not feeling comfortable leading their families in faith?
Yeah. Again, it might be a situation that for some reason over the course of the last number of decades, um, men didn't think that was important for them to do for their family. To support their family financially, yes, and to do the yard work, and yes. But when it comes to the faith, there's something that happened to a great majority to me of men, where they lost that zeal to understand the faith and to really understand how important it was. And hopefully, again, by researching the faith on just a few topics, that's happened to me. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the faith on certain topics, and once I put my foot in the door, then a whole bunch of other topics started to come out at me, like, wow, I didn't know this, I didn't know this, and it just springboarded me to where I wanted to find out everything about the Catholic faith. And if I could get this right, if I could understand the faith and get these really tough questions answered, it could end up really well when it comes to eternity. So I wanted to get those answers, and that's what the Catholic Church brings. They give us the answers to the really tough questions in today's society.
So what do you think, so if a father is watching this, a husband and father is watching this, and they're starting to question maybe whether or not they're true leaders in the faith in their family, or they're recognizing that they're not, and would like to start making some changes in the family, what would you suggest to them?
I have listened to so many podcasts about this over so many years, and it all comes down, they're all saying the same thing. Absolutely stay in the state of grace by going to Mass every week in Holy Days of Obligation. Go to confession on a regular basis. And when I found out about the 15 promises that our Blessed Mother gives to us by having a devotional to the Rosary, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in. And then the fourth thing is, we have a wonderful adoration chapel here at our parish. I got more involved in that over the years, and that is powerful. Prayers answered in the adoration chapel, one-on-one. God is there in the Eucharist, and those are the four different things that are a foundation that every man has to have a part of their faith life, and then from there it just builds on from there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome, and I think so what I hear you saying is the transformation has to start within them first.
You bet.
And then once they become transformed, or they're in the process of that transformation, then their family will recognize that. And, you know, one of the things I love about our priests here is they were somewhat controversial when they came. And I never doubted them. I never questioned what they said, because I saw the light of Christ in them, and I wanted that for myself. And I think, Randy, that's really what you're saying too, is that the father has to have the light of Christ within him, and then his family will desire to have that as well.
You bet.
And so the transformation has to start with us individually, and then we can touch others.
You bet. You bet. Once you continue to pursue that, you get transformed from the inside out. And it's really attractive to other people, to where you think, all right, what's going on? Why maybe have things changed in that regard? But that's really attractive. And people need that in today's world. There's a lot of things happening in this world that really get people bummed out, depressed, full of anxiety. And when you know the answer to that, God is there through his sacraments, through prayer, to get you over that hump. It's a freeing experience, and it's a great way to live.
I agree. And if you're a wife and a mother, and you would love for your husband to take more of an active role in the faith life of your family, do not underestimate the power of prayer. Once again, Randy, it's been a great talk. And I think these are important topics that we're exploring, and I appreciate you every time we have a conversation, I always learn something new. So thank you. We hope that you've enjoyed listening to us and would like to tune into us in the future. Thank you, and God bless.